Kenny Clark just got extended. What does this mean for the Packers? Also, training camp has officially begun. Stick around to see what things are on our watch list.
Yeah, I've been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay. Hey. Yeah. Ain't no errors, baby. It's a new era. I wake up early feeling rich like I'm cash.
Welcome in another episode. Sounds Gouda. Thank you all so much for coming back and listening to us. I am one of your two co-hosts. We are best friends. My name is Rob Ralph. Next to me is Jordan Olson. Appreciate everyone coming back in and listening. We're so excited to talk Packers with you again this week and every week. Just know that every Thursday we do have new episodes that come out on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So we got some big news that dropped today, Jordan. We got good old Kenny Clark just got extended. Pretty excited about that. Probably arguably had one of his best years last year as a Packer. He's only hitting into age 29, so he's, as imagine, it's felt like he's been with the Packers for 20 years, but still a young guy, still continuing to improve. I think he's going to be a major force to be reckoned with in this new defense. So pretty excited about him getting a new contract extension. We know that some of those talks were coming through the interwebs as well. $64 million over 3 years, so that's a 21.3 average. Just know that kicks in after the season. Currently, this season he is making $24 million. So for that too, that ranks 10th among defensive tackles with an extension. So got quite the bargain here. And just for this list too, some of these people that are on this list are some really good defensive tackles in the league. So just really excited to get Kenny Clark on here. But some of those other ones are Chris Jones, Wilkins, Matabake, Quinnen Williams, Buckner, Simmons, Payne, etc. Super excited for this and what this means for the Packers. Jordan, what are your initial thoughts on all this?
Yeah, it was critical for them to get this done. In this most recent iteration of the Packers, especially after moving on from Aaron Rodgers, I think, Jordan Love has quickly become the face of the team. But on the defensive side of the ball, you think about guys like Kenny Clark, right? You did mention he's coming off a great season. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler. To get this done, to get him extended through his age 32 season, which I think that's right in that sweet spot. The Packers are hesitant to give out third contracts. I think that's typically due to the age that those players will play until or through those contracts. I think you feel pretty good about them paying Kenny Clark through that age 32 season. And then, if the two sides part ways after that, then I think, you felt good about it. Kenny Clark has played like 10 plus seasons in Green Bay. I think recently there was a lot of chatter on X2 about the interview that Goody did on Cheesehead TV saying that he wouldn't touch the Kenny Clark deal until the Jordan Love deal was done. What do you think about that, Rob?
Yeah, so, we were having some of this discussion too before we hopped on, but, you brought up some really good points. It might just be a matter of they thought that Jordan Love's contract stuff was going to move a lot faster than it did. Obviously, that's not the case, unless, maybe there's already a deal that's done and they're just waiting to announce it sometime this next week, which would be amazing on that front too. But I think it could just be a matter of that. And also just a matter of Kenny Clark really giving them a solid deal here for, one of the best defensive tackles in the league, not asking for the most, or the best top dollar, which there's some argument for sure. I don't know if he would have gotten paid quite that high, but he obviously wants to be a Packer. I'm looking forward to him and what he does in this new defense too. Arguably, like we were saying for before, had one of his best seasons last year. So just a solid deal for the Packers. And, they were just wanting to get this out of the way too, with some of this stuff coming up potentially after this year too. A lot of people were thinking that this might be maybe could have been one of his last years as a Packer. So just some of my initial thoughts on it.
Yeah, why have two looming contracts out there? It's already bad enough that you're going to have Jordan Love's contract dwindle into this exciting time of training camp beginning. Hopefully he doesn't hold out. He's under contract, so hopefully he'll be there playing. I expect that to be the case, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Jordan Love's deal in a second. But I think when Goody said that, he anticipated, as what you said, that he was going to get that deal done with Jordan, and then he'd worry about the next most important contract, which was Kenny Clark. But both sides wanted to get it done. Because Kenny Clark was never going to reset the defensive tackle market either. He was never going to get close to the Chris Jones contract. I think that makes things a little simpler too. It was probably figuring out where he fits. I easily could have seen him in that, Quinnen Williams market of $24 million a year. Justin Matabuke got just over that. But he signs, in my opinion, a hometown discount to stay a Packer, and I love to see it. So excited to see Kenny Clark, number 97, tear up the trenches for the foreseeable future. So back to that. Go ahead, Rob.
I was just saying, so we're both going on the same track here, but speaking of the Jordan Love contract, why do you feel might be some different things into that too? Why that hasn't been done yet?
Yeah, for me, I really think, and I know nothing, right? Because I'm not involved in those. If I had to give the reason that me sitting here in Kalamazoo, Michigan, most think that this isn't done yet, it would be the length of the contract over the value. I would imagine that they're fairly comfortable giving him $53, $55, $56 million a year. But I think that they want to get it done for 5 or 6 years. And I could very much see Jordan Love wanting to be able to go back to market after winning a Super Bowl or being, an MVP in 2 or 3 seasons and really cashing in at that point in time. We've talked about how the cap is going to explode in 2027. Certainly, if we know that as fans, Jordan Love's agent, David Malagutta, and Jordan Love know that as well. I think they'd love to see a deal that would expire in 27 or 28 and then really make some money at that point in time. You can see those quarterback contracts, exceed the $70 million a year mark if the NFL doesn't implement an NFL quarterback salary cap, which I have no idea what that looks like. That would be a fun episode to explore if we have some more details. But right now, that's not what we have. So I don't know. What do you think, Rob? Besides the length, are there other things holding this up?
I mean, the other side of that too is just like, okay, well, you only saw half a season of really good play from Jordan Love, right? Realistically. And I would say for most NFL teams, that's probably not enough. I mean, considering a lot of NFL teams start their rookie quarterbacks year one. And I think that's also another part of the reason why you've had a lot of turnover as far as the quarterback position goes. But we don't have to dive down deep into that discussion. Do you think that there's any merit on that, or do you think? Sounds like you think it's strictly just the length of the contract and them wanting more of a shorter deal to be able to revamp that and then get them paid more.
I think so, but it could be a lot of small things too, and we probably don't need to spend an exorbitant amount of time talking about this because I'm pretty confident it will get done at some point in time in the next few weeks. I think both parties want to see it done, and when it happens, Rob and I will jump on here and we'll have a whole episode recounting, explaining the Jordan Love extension and what we all know that will mean. So, for the sake of time, let's talk about training camp because I do think that by the time you're listening to this, we're recording this on the eve of training camp. I think veterans report today, Sunday, July 21st, but camp starts on Monday, July 22nd. Super excited to see the Packers back out at Ray Nitschke Field, the training facilities. By the time you're listening to this, the first preseason game will just be a little over 2 weeks away, so we'll get to see some game action against the Browns. I cannot wait for that.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. So let's talk a little bit training camp. Some things that we're thinking about, we're going to be watching for, and I'm sure as the next few weeks unfold, some things that we're going to touch a little bit deeper on. So, in the secondary, there's going to be a lot happening in the secondary. We have a lot of new pieces, particularly at the back end. Our new leader, Xavier McKinney, and the rookies are going to be fighting it out for those safety spots. But there's going to be a battle on the outside too. So who do you think wins the cornerback 2 spot, Rob? Is that Eric Stokes, Carrington Valentine, or other person?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll really come down to those two. I know I've talked about on here before how much I'm just, having a man crush on Carrington Valentine. Just really love his first year, and I thought he did really good things after stepping in for some injuries. But Eric Stokes was a first round cornerback for a reason, and he's got some speed, and obviously he can show that when he can stay healthy. Granted, all his stuff, for Madison this year goes according to plan, and he can be on the field for some more games. He can play, and he can play really well. So I think it's one of the top battles I think we're all going to be watching out for. It's hard to say. I'll stick with my Valentine, but it could easily be wrong, and Stokes could take over that battle. To me, it seems like almost a coin flip at this moment, and just whoever's hotter maybe gets the upper hand, and who Jeff Hafley decides is the best fit for the defense. What do you think?
I think about 3 things when I think about this battle. One of them we talked about in our last episode, and that's taking the ball away. I don't think that's either of these players' blue chip talent is taking the ball away. I think we saw Eric Stokes in his rookie season being really good with some defensive pass breakups. But if one of these 2 guys can come out in camp and show their ability to take the ball away, to get some interceptions, to punch the ball out on some aggressive tackling, I think that's going to come right after. Obviously, the number one thing that a corner has to do has to be sticky in coverage and not allow people to beat them down the field. So not even going to touch that. But after that, I think takeaways. I think after that, consistent tackling is important for these 2. They're both bigger physical guys, and we have to fix our tackling deficiencies, especially if we want to improve against the run. So I look for that, and then I really look to see who's going to be physical in the press. They're going to want to play press man coverage. I think that might play into Carrington Valentine's repertoire a little bit more. So I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. I'm going to sit back. I'm going to eat my popcorn, and I'm going to enjoy the show. And I'm going to be happy with whoever has that spot coming into week 1. So
yeah, speaking on other spots too, and to move on, it's always an interesting time with training camp too. For a lot of different teams, but for your offensive line and what that means, I think that, at least from our perspective, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here too, Jordan, but ours is pretty much set. I think the kind of only discussion here we wanted to discuss is, do we think Jordan Morgan cracks the starting lineup?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's 6 guys for 5 spots, right? And you've got Rasheed Walker, Elton Jenkins, Josh Myers, Sean Ryan, Zach Tom, and Jordan Morgan. We've talked extensively this offseason about where does Jordan Morgan fit in. I initially had him slated as the starting left guard. I could see him cracking that spot. Starting right guard. See him taking that spot from Sean Ryan. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do with some of these other guys. If they leave Zach Tom at right tackle, if Rasheed Walker looks great at left tackle, that really makes that a 2-person competition for that right guard spot. I think center is our biggest weakness on the line, potentially the interior center right guard. That's where I could see Jordan Morgan making the biggest impact in year 1. But I don't know. They could very easily roll out the 5 that they ended last season with. Rob, do you have a feeling one way or another where they'll land?
Yeah, no. I don't think he'll initially crack the top 5. I think he'll provide valuable depth when injuries occur, and they definitely, I'm sure, will occur. They always do. And then what he does in those spots or in those games or those positions to be able to succeed um, could make kind of for an interesting conversation, right? Too. So um, I think it'll be an interesting battle to see just where they're lining up different folks. Totally agree with you on the center position being our weakest link as far as our offensive line goes. But either way, just as we have football back, it'll be interesting to see the different types of lineups, what different types of spots people are playing, and specifically Jordan Morgan, where he's lining up and where they're giving him spots at in training.
Yeah, so I'll stick with my early prediction before camp because we haven't seen camp play out. If we watch 2 preseason games and Jordan Morgan doesn't look like he is a NFL player going into week 1, then we'll have that discussion and I'll take my medicine. But I still think Jordan Morgan has a great shot at starting at right guard. So I'm going to have him right now over Sean Ryan. So which leads us kind of into our next thing to watch. But what rookies will win opening day spots? So I gave you one, Jordan Morgan, maybe at right guard. But who else do you like to win an opening day job?
Yeah, they're going to have some shockers here. Everyone's going to be totally surprised again by our amazing analysis. But, Edgerrin Cooper, I think, is obviously the slam dunk to spot him there next to Quay. I'd be shocked if it were any other way or if Tyron Hopper comes on and plays really well. I guess if he does, obviously there might be a case for it too as well. But they drafted Cooper, around or two higher to be able to come in here and compete and play really well. And I think so far in camps and OTAs, the kid has got some really good speed. He can play, and he's been making some plays so far in his limited time. So pretty excited for Cooper. And then another one, Javon Bullard. I think he's going to play a lot more safety with splashes in here with and the nickel. But it will be interesting, just that kind of rotation of safety. I'm not even specifically talking about McKinney, but like with the other likes of Katan Oladapo and Evan Williams, too, as far as where they play, how they rotate them, what they're doing as far as the defense is doing, and that sort of stuff, too. So what are your thoughts? You agree with both of those? And would you have any other extra takes on that?
Yeah, I mean, I for sure think Cooper is the guy that they drafted and has the talent to be playing against Quay on a majority of the base packages. I don't think that there's any surprises there. Injury would be the only thing that could derail that, in my opinion. Bullard, I'd be curious to see if he's going to compete with Keyshawn and the Nixon in the slot, though. I know that Goody has said that they like him and Matt LaFleur too on the back end. That's what they drafted him to be, a versatile safety. I think people have seen the transferable skills in the slot. He played slot in college. And, maybe he comes out and he flat out outplays Keyshawn Nixon. Now, I know Keyshawn Nixon has been putting in the work this offseason. He seems to be a very valuable and respected locker room piece. So from those standpoints alone, it's going to be hard to get him off of the field. But that would be another place where I could see Javon Bullard cracking the opening day lineup, maybe in the slot. Here's one that is not a big, sexy name, but Peter Bowden is going to win the opening day long snapper gig. And I hope he wins it and he runs away with it and he does a beautiful job of it. And we know who Peter Bowden is for about 10 years, and we don't have to talk about long snapper again. That's my little pipe dream for the Packers this season, is that we find a little hidden gem in Peter Bowden, and we can close the book on that discussion for a few camps. So getting away from the rookie conversation, what are some players that you're going to be looking for that could be on the fringe of the roster, Rob, that you think could make the back end of the roster and have an impact this season?
Yeah, it's always a crapshoot, right? Every year, I think there's always more than a few different surprises, but I think the few that we came up with, Grant DeBose making a case. I think we also got Brenton Cox Jr. Be interesting to see how he comes back and plays this year into this new defensive system. And then Kalen King. I mean, we kind of are, at least for me, one of my loves, one of my draft pick crushes as well too. But he was a seventh rounder, so he's going to need to be able to perform. He's going to be able to need to make plays, like you were alluding to from before. He's needed to be sticking coverage, take the ball away. I mean, if he does all that stuff, then enter him in as a full-on lock, no doubt. But that's a crowded cornerback room too, so it'd be interesting to see some of that competition there, and that kind of goes along too with the Stokes Valentine conversation too.
Yeah, three different players that I like their opportunity to make the roster, but three different stories to be had there. Kalen King, I feel pretty good about because Goody really values keeping his draft picks for at least one season. He likes those guys to get to year two, regardless of what they show in training camp. So pretty strong bet that unless Kalen King is terrible, that he makes the opening day roster. He might not, who knows, he might not be like on the active week one, 45 or whatever they can put out there, but a pretty strong case to make the 53. Brenton Cox Jr. is going to have a battle to become the fifth edge on this team. And I've heard some pretty strong things about his ability to win and what he showed in the mini camp. They obviously kept him in a roster spot last year. For people who don't know much about Brenton Cox Jr., extremely talented player, once a 5-star recruit, bounced around some high-level programs, including Florida, which he ended up with. Got into trouble, was kind of one point in time viewed as a pretty highly regarded draft pick, and then tumbled down and got scooped up by the Packers last year. So ultra talented, blue chip type of prospect. And if he can kind of click and show his physical attributes, I think there is a place for him on this team, especially thinking about Preston Smith potentially being done after this season, just with his contract and everything. So Grant DeBose, for me, I like the talent. I like the fact that he'll probably make the practice squad, but I think from a number standpoint, we're going to have a hard time keeping more than six wide receivers on the team. So he's going to have to beat out the likes of a Bo Melton or Malik Heath to make that roster. But just somebody to keep an eye on this camp. So you think we're going to see a lot of the 4-3, Rob? What do you think we're going to see out of what's Halfley going to show us with the 4-3?
Well, I know we're not going to get any, exotic looks or anything crazy, but just the energy, how it looks, how they're playing against this really potent, starting offense. Just the coaching, the mindset, the aggressiveness, the press man. I would love to see some of those exotic blitz packages that I've been seeing all over the interwebs from Boston College, these bear fronts and whatever else they're being called and stuff. Looks like a lot of movement too along the line and keeps the opposing team's offensive line kind of off guard and having to communicate really quickly. I think not that we'll see a lot of that in training camp, more specifically during the regular season, but I think that's going to be critical for the Packers, just how they blitz the specific situations, how they make it really hard for the offensive line to communicate and to make coverages to be able to get to the quarterback. So, some along with that too, but just some of the stuff with the cornerback competition, the safety, the Edgerrin Cooper, the new toy, The stuff with Bullard as far as like the slot goes, or Kalen King. You can tell that I'm pretty excited about the defense. I feel like the defense gets right this year, or at least can get top 15 total defense all together, and play like a top 10. Man, we could be cooking with something special.
I really want to caution people to let's temper our expectations. Like, we've been talking for 2 or 3 years now that we've got the talent to be a top 10 defense, and we haven't even been close. And I know that our big scapegoat was Joe Barry. You mentioned an exotic packages. This defense is going to be exotic compared to what we're used to seeing over the last few years with Joe Barry, right? So I think that we have a lot of players that are going to get up to speed. They're probably not going to show us everything they got, but they are going to need to test some of this in camp. And it's going to look crazy to us. And hopefully there's guys running around with that Halfley energy and with their hair on fire and gang tackling. But it's going to look different. I'm excited for it. But as much as we want to get excited with the talent we have, let's not start on we're going to have a top 5, a top 10 defense. And right what I think you said, first of all, Rob, there, let's focus on just being in the upper half of the league. If we can be the 15th best defense, the 16th best defense consistently, and as we said last week, maybe take the ball away a few more times this year, we're going to have a pretty good chance.
Just not to play 10 yards off on a 3rd and 4. La, 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 la. You know what I mean?
Just smart and competent situational defense alone will help.
Yeah, and I can tell you one thing too, and I know this is probably the same exact feeling from other Packers fans, but man, if Jeff Halfley does not work out, I'm done. I'm done ever putting hope in the hope glass for the Packers defense. This is the year, Packers fans. Let's go. Be excited, but also temper expectations. Let's just work on incremental improvements.
Yeah, I think next year would be the fair year for us to try to be ultra excited about where this defense can be. I think about the offense from last year. It took us about, week 1 looked great, but we had all training camp to script week 1. And then it took us about a half a season to really figure things out. There's a lot of young players. I expect a similar trajectory out of the defense this year. So the Packers have a very long-standing tradition of having an undrafted player make the roster. In fact, that's one of the biggest selling points for undrafted players to come to Green Bay, because they give them as fair a chance as any. I already told you that I think that Peter Bowden is going to continue that tradition by making the roster as a long snapper this year. Rob, do you think that there's any other undrafted players on our roster right now that can make the team?
The only other one that comes to mind that we wrote down here too is Donovan Jennings as a possibility. Other than that, to be honest, I'm sure whoever it's going to be, it'll be like come out of left field and be like, well, of course we should have saw that coming, but no other ones come to mind for me. What about you?
Yeah, I think that I really like Donovan Jennings to make the roster, and this will segue it perfectly into our next thing here about our locks to get cut. We're just going to give you one lock to get cut, but mine's an offensive lineman. His name might be Royce Newman. Packers fans' public enemy number 1, Royce Newman. He's my lock to get cut. But with that lock, provides an opportunity for Donovan Jennings to make this team. I think they keep 10 offensive linemen. They like to keep 10 or 11. I think they're going to have a hard time getting to 11 this year. If they want to keep, some extra players on defense as they transition, if they want to try to keep 3 quarterbacks, if they like Clifford and they want to develop Michael Pratt and they're not ready to make a decision on that. They want to protect those guys. It's going to be hard to keep 11 linemen or 7 wide receivers. But I think we could use a little bit more depth on our interior offensive line. They gave Donovan Jennings a priority contract to come in and compete. I just probably expect him by the end of training camp to be more prepared than Royce Newman, and for them to move on from him. So
I think the experiment is over for sure. He's going to get one last crack at it, but I think we've all seen enough. So just one kind of back end for me a lock. Samari Toure. I just think it's going to be tough just with our current wide receiver depth. Just 1 through 6 specifically. And then you have those other conversations of your Grant DuBoses and your Malik Heath, and your Malik Heath are, really good in blocking in the run game. And he made some really good catches too last year. So there's a lot of really good talent there. But what is he going into year 3, year 4? So I just think that it's gonna be hard for him to crack the roster. So I could easily see him as a lock to get cut.
He may very well end up back on the practice squad.
Yep.
But I could see them prioritizing some other positions there, especially if they can keep a Grant DuBose or who was that wide receiver darling that's already been making one-hand catches, Dimitri Stanley. There's going to be some guys that they're going to be able to roster on that practice squad. So Toure is going to have to show a lot.
He really is.
Or I agree with you, Rob.
I mean, he really is, and I would have said Alex Magoo for sure as public enemy number 2. But I think all Packers fans probably feel Royce Newman is number 1, but Magoo already got cut, so took it right out of me.
We can't really put Magoo as public enemy number 2. He didn't really. Royce Newman just is not a capable NFL offensive lineman and commits a penalty every other snap. But I don't really have anything against Magoo other than I don't know how that experiment was going to work out as a wide receiver.
Yeah, but, not public enemy, I guess, but for sure a lock probably to get cut.
Yeah. We won't talk much about this, but we'll get to see some of the new kickoff happen. So we'll talk more about that when we get into some live action. We can see it happening during the preseason games and have some initial reactions. But we'll be curious to see how that plays out. And then, of course, we pray to stay healthy throughout this training camp period. Preseason games, joint practices, we know they get a little frisky. So the success of everything rides on the Packers being healthy at the end of the season.
It really does.
And hopefully we can stay healthy throughout. So, a couple other closing notes. As Rob mentioned, Alex Magoo is cut. I think that's the rumor. I think they technically put him on the PUP list, but I heard that an injury settlement is coming for Alex Magoo. So thank you very much, Alex. It's been a great journey. I think you were the USFL MVP at one point in time, or XFL. Maybe you'll go and have success again in that league. But we wish you the best. They did sign 2 other wide receivers to the team, Rory Starkey and Jalen Wright. Jalen Wright is the cousin of, or Jalen Wayne, is the cousin of Reggie Wayne. So little NFL bloodline there. We've already been talking about how hard it is going to be to crack this roster as a Packers wide receiver. So wish you 2 the best of luck, Rory and Jalen, in making this roster. But maybe a practice squad if you show out. Randall Cobb is unofficially retired and is becoming an analyst for the SEC network. He's a former Kentucky Wildcat. Wish him the best there. I know he followed his buddy Aaron to the New York, and you can't really fault him for that. But Randall Cobb will always have a special place in my heart and a lot of Packers fans' hearts. So it'll be good to see him on cable TV if you have the SEC network. So, And then just a few other injury wrap-ups. We did have the 5 players that were on the PUP list to start camp. By the time you're listening to this on Thursday, these players could already be off the list, but Alex Magoo, Tucker Kraft, Gaetano Ladapo, Donovan Jennings, and Zach Tom start camp on the PUP list. One other injury note is that Jalen Reed had a non-football injury. It sounds like he may miss a few days, but nothing to be concerned about that I'm aware of. So, yeah, you got anything else, Rob?
Nope, that's it. Just saw the Reed news come through today, but it doesn't sound like it was anything serious, at least according to the sources on the interwebs. So, hopefully dodged a bullet that way.
But we just wanted to thank our new subscribers. We've had a few since the last time that we shout out our new subscribers. So thanks to anybody who is subscribing and listening. One public profile that we wanted to thank, Fun Football Podcast. Thanks for becoming a subscriber. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
But yeah, more great content coming out every Thursday. Share this with your friends, your families, other Packers fans. If there's some takes from some opposing fan bases that you'd like to share with them and get them riled up too, we'd love to take the heat and start some conversations with some of our divisional or non-divisional football rivals. So if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Apple Podcasts, make sure to follow us. YouTube watchers, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Like, comment, and let us know what you think. As always, you can connect with us on X, or formerly Twitter, Rob at Robber79, and myself, Jordan Olson at OlsonJord. So, until next time, Packers Nation, have a Gouda morning, a Gouda afternoon, and a Gouda night.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
Been wanted this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving